Okay, so for those that are joining, good morning. This is the second episode of the OSS breakfast podcast, essentially. Hello.
Yeah, good morning.
Um, so we have a bit of kind of a short podcast, but we're going to try to get some points and whatnot, try to talk about some stuff. So I'm joined here with Quinn.
Hello.
So let's see. The first one we have is, well, we're just going to talk about the spoilers for FF2CG that have come out so far, and what we think of them, and if we think they're going to be game changers or not.
Sounds good.
So, I know me and some of the other people with Quinn's Wall have been using Untap.in to test out some plays with the new spoilers. What would
Yeah,
you?
what was some of the I was gonna say what are some of the spoilers particularly you've been using to practice with?
Hmm. I know I've been practicing with the X Death a little bit, which I think
Okay.
with the promo Yuna, oh boy.
Yeah. Do you want to read Exeth for our viewers who may or may not know what his effects are?
Sure. Go to. Let's look in the one community thing here.
Sure.
Down the list. Keep going. I'll get to it eventually. Here we are. So Xf is a 4-cost lightning forward with AK power. He can also come on in full art foil. He's legendary. If there's 10 or more cards removed from the game, X-Death gains 2k power, so he's a 10k at that point. When X-Death enters the field, remove all characters in each player's break zone from the game. At the end of each of your turns, if there are 20 or more cards removed from the game, your opponent selects one character they control and remove it from the game.
Interesting. Okay. So particularly why did you think this was a card that you wanted to build around?
Well, I usually interact with summons, but I need stuff to support the summons in some way to kind of make it a little bit more spooky in a way.
Okay.
And with Yuna already in the deck that removes stuff, and my deck likes to interact with the break zone to remove stuff from it, I thought I might as well. And if they try to do like a Mist Dragon on me, sorry.
Yeah. No. I'm still listening. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. If they try to do Mist Dragon, it's like, okay, that's I don't have to worry about if I don't have things in the break zone. I benefit from this some way or another. So it's a way to kind of go, you want to banish my break zone? Cool. Plus, as well, he's searchable with Sildra too, which is amazing.
Yeah. Pesky old Sildra, still getting worth. But yeah, I do like the fact that his wording specifically says characters, so it kind of, if you fill your break zone with summons, as my degenerate lifestyle likes to do, this card kind of gets around that, which is interesting.
Right.
Very interesting wording on this card.
Yeah, because this, like as you mentioned, doesn't really affect the summons, so I have other ways to still benefit from summons, like either through Seymour or otherwise.
It's pretty spicy in that regard. It's like they almost designed it with Mashuri in mind, but then banned Mashuri. So, what was the point of the character words? But I don't know, maybe they have something going on that I don't know. But yeah, that's cool. What other cards have you been building around?
um, well, there's that. Have been, well, I've there are a couple cards I looked at. I thought about doing a Brave Exodus thing, but almost like 2 or 3 of my locals are building one. One already has a pre-built title deck with it, so he'll be building that.
Okay.
Honestly, there's a couple cards that will be good for my what I call Bleed or Taste the Blood deck, which is an old style deck, but I benefit from being hurt, or I hurt myself to benefit myself to try to win.
Okay.
Just trying to
So
find it.
like through things like Are you going old school like Fasolia or?
Mm, more like I use like the 3-drop Noctis from set
Mm,
7. Yeah. And I have things that kill things and I take a damage. Noctis triggers. Deal the opponents for something, then break something. Then I have the old Opus 1 Legendary Tidus that basically has 6 damage. If I don't meme or cheese the win with him, then I lose.
okay, yeah. So kind of some self burn. Interesting, interesting.
Yeah, there's also a couple other cards I might add that are Earth that have been spoiled, which is pretty good. So,
Okay, and what kind of cards would those be? Like
uh,
specifically, if you were to so graciously let us know.
let's see. So the one which is from Brave Exodus, Dorando. Uh,
Orlando.
yeah, three
Interesting.
drop
Can you read
ra-
his effect?
Yeah, 3-drop Earth, 7K rare, Brave Exodus,
Mhm.
forward of course. When Dorando deals damage to your opponent, choose up to 140 in break zone, and up to one backup in your break zone add to your hand.
Okay.
And then he has a special which is pitch him, which is the special is called Rebellious Spirit. But so pitch him until the end of turn. Dorando gains 4K power and brave and cannot be chosen by your opponent's abilities.
Spicy.
So he's basically a +1 if you're pitching 2 cards to get him out.
Mm,
But
yeah,
it's
sounds pretty good.
so there's that. This is kind of cheeky. I thought about the new Rydia as well. I got just as
Oh,
like
the
the
new 3-cost radio?
no the 5-cost Earth backup.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure.
So she's obviously a summoner from before. She's a common. Uh,
Mhm.
when backup when she enters the field, choose one forward. Put in your break zone from the field this turn. Play it onto the field.
Sounds seems pretty spicy. I definitely like. I mean, maybe this is just like a personal thing, but I kind of like how Durando plays. I mean, like I really like free recursion, and like I mean, the only downside is
He has to deal your
he has to
opponent.
like deal damage, but I mean, there are ways of kind of memeing that, I guess.
Yeah,
I
the
just
other
like the idea of what he does. So
right.
pretty cool.
The other so there's 2 other cards I would like to talk about, which is
Yeah, sure.
one is Ewin, the 1-cost EX forward rare 3K power FTA2.
Sure. Hmm.
When Ewin's put from the field into the break, so we put Ewin to the top of the owner's deck. Okay. At damage 3, when Ewin's put into the damage zone, choose one forward, break it. This ability basically only triggered in a damage zone essentially.
Yeah, that's pretty spicy all by itself. I mean, utilizing the damage zone is something that a lot of cards primarily don't do, but being able to do it is definitely worthwhile in my
Right.
opinion.
And if I play on my bleed deck, I have the 1-card Larsa, I think, in my deck that I can just swap out something, play him. It's like, you gonna kill him? Gonna kill? Okay. Hey, let's do it again.
Yeah, the 2-cost Larsa definitely. He even saw meta play recently here in the States.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, he was in Matt Okamoto's story list,
uh,
which is like very EX aggressive. So being able to utilize or make sure that you had the EXs that you wanted in the break zone, or get back cards that you didn't want in the break zone, very useful.
yeah.
Um,
So that I think that'll be good because then it just sets up, and if I have Noctis on the field, and if they don't deal with Noctis in some way, then it's
yeah,
like
and
you're gonna hurt me. You're going to lose 2 things at this point.
yeah, and Larsa also has like a passive that where
If you have,
3 or more EXs in your break zone, I believe they
it's
get
if
plus
you
2.
yeah, if for every 3 EX bursts in your damage zone, you get all your forwards get 2K power.
Seems pretty powerful.
Right. I might just run him as a 3 of. Like, I know he's a name unit, but because his EX thing, it's just going like, so good.
Yeah, it is pretty spicy, especially if you can get it to work consistently, so that you're making sure that your forwards are always buffed. It'll make combat very difficult for your opponent.
Yeah, well, the point of that deck is make them buff and make it so they punish my opponent. So I have stuff like Heretical Knight Garland that choose a forward against 4K power and Brave. It cannot be chosen by some of their abilities. I have stuff like that. Also buffs all the Earth. I also have the Minwu backup. The whole works.
Yeah, that sounds pretty solid to me.
And the last card I wanted to talk about was Man in Black.
Oh, yeah, that one's pretty spicy. Do you want to read it for our viewers?
Yep. So 5 cost Lightning forward 9K. He's a heroic. You cannot play Man in Black or a card named Golbez while you are controlled either of the characters. So they're basically saying they're both the same character. Oh yeah, Man in Black's job is question mark, question mark, question mark. That's
Some
for
ambiguity right there.
right, and it's like okay. Then his other effects are when Man in Black enters the field or attacks. Choose one summon in your break zone, remove it from the game. You can cast it anytime you would normally cast it. When you cast a summon, choose up to one forward. It gains this forward cannot attack or block until the end of turn. That's pretty good.
Yeah, sounds pretty spicy.
Some of the other questions, usually I would rule it as this: is if something's removed and you cast it normally, it'll just return to the break zone. But I'm not entirely 100% sure that is the case. Because
Man in Black.
with the man in Black or anything that removes it, and then you can like the 2 cost of Dane. The current 2 cost of Dane. So if it's removed, it's cast, and then does it stay removed, or is it put to the owner's break zone?
You know, that's a grand question. I'm guessing because it legitimately says remove it from the game, you can cast it anytime you could normally cast it. I'm assuming that once it particularly resolves on cast, like any summon would move back to the break zone. But I'm not sure there's a ruling that says otherwise. So, I mean, if it did, you know, particularly continue to stay in exile, and you can cast it every turn, that'd be pretty broken. But
apparently, the great British video gamer says it stays removed.
I see. Well, if it continues to stay removed, then you got yourself an infinite spell.
So it's like it stays removed, and then he's saying it's after cast it goes to break. Okay.
Okay, so then yeah, I was right. Yeah, you would just normally cast it once and then done. But yeah, that's pretty spicy card. I'm glad. I don't know if I'm glad he's on a more sizable body. It would be kind of a shame if you were to pay 5 CP for this, and then they AMA the trigger to remove the card from Brunk. That would definitely suck.
Yeah. No. Oh yeah. No. Definitely. Actually, another card I was thinking I would talk about is the character box, the box character card.
Oh, Minwu.
Yep.
Ah, yeah. Do you want to read Minwu for our listeners?
Well, I already have his abilities memorized by heart.
Oh, wow. You like him that much? All right.
Yep. So, he's a 5 cost legendary 8K forward. Water. Before you cast Minwu, you can remove 3 summons of a different element from your break zone to reduce his cost by 3. So he becomes a 2 cost. And then, so one of the abilities is 0 cost. Choose an ability that's targeting a forward that you control. Cancels effect. You only use this ability once per turn. I'm second guessing myself on this now.
Why is that?
Because I'm going, is that really all it is? I'm like going, uh-oh.
I mean, it's still pretty good. I mean, the effect to be able to protect something, at least from like an effect once per turn. I mean, it has value right there.
Yeah. Oh, I was
Not
right. That was
sure
all the
where.
abilities. Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, that by itself is like really, really potent. The only thing is like it's once per turn, so like if your opponent cheeses you or like gets you to utilize the ability in a sense that doesn't really particularly matter, um, they can then use the next ability without any fear that something might happen. But
Yeah, but at the same time, you can also make it for nothing essentially. Make them pay more just to get rid of a threat twice.
that's
So,
true.
so it's like, hey, I'm going to do this whatever to get rid of that. Cancel it. I'm going to do it again. It's like, okay, you wasted mana on this. I'm fine with that.
I mean, I could definitely see how it's like kind of a tax of sorts, but the only other thing I would say is like if this card read remove up to 3 summons, and for each summon you reduce the cost, I feel like this card would be better. I don't like being particularly put in a box and told like remove 3 exact cards, but
Yeah.
I mean maybe that's just personal preference, but outside of it, it seems pretty solid.
Yeah, and I've had a couple test games with it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's true there. The great video game. Blah, 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 blah. That's a long name. I was going to say James. I'm sorry. um, so, um, yeah, I tested the minimum and I ended up doing like a turn where I put him on the field, put Kamari on the field, which gives the counter, right? So I put on Minwoo, he doesn't take damage from some of their abilities, which is perfect. So it protects Minwoo, and I can use Minwoo to protect someone else. So they're like, well, crap. I see the new Minwoo though as a defensive rather than an aggressive version of him.
Yeah, this one definitely seems like it wants to particularly be more of a control piece than or a protection piece more than a control piece. I think
I
the
mean,
old Mimir that like cast summons or the one that reduced damage, those cards were a little more pivoted in a specific direction. So it's interesting to see a forward Mimir that does something
yeah, I mean,
different. Yeah.
his job's a white mage, and that's primarily what a white mage does, right? It's just protect and also make sure the party is staying alive.
Sounds good.
uh,
Outside of Mimir, is there anything else that you've been testing around with?
no, I did get a chance to test out the new Kuchling, which is basically it's basically a all intents and purposes another way to put one Doom counter on something.
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting piece of removal. Um,
I,
Definitely a unique piece of removal.
right.
Do you want to read it for our listeners?
Yep. So, Kuchling. So 4 costs Water Summon EX Burst, which is still pretty good, I think. Choose one forward at the beginning of the next main phase 1, put into the break zone. So they literally only have one turn to keep it alive, or hope to God they don't have a Amaterasu, they top deck an Amaterasu to cancel that, which it can be canceled.
Yeah, Amaterasu definitely puts in a lot of work, for sure.
Yeah, but it's like one of those is a impending doom, and if they don't deal with it, then
Very true. Very true. Very true.
It also gives an extra little bit of a scare because you can have scary bodies that have autos that trigger. But if you cast that previously in the last turn, that's going to kill the thing that you just put on that's going to be a scary for you. They now have 3 choices that they have to deal with. 1, they lose their thing. 2, they lose 2 or 3, 1 to 2 other things. So which are they going to get rid of in terms of the threat? The thing that they just tried to get on the field, just go, I'm going to win this with this, but it's going to die soon. Or basically get rid of the 2 threats on your board. So it gives an extra choice where they're like, crap.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see how that could be. It can get out of hand.
Oh god,
For
yeah.
certain.
Oh, yeah. James basically said, yeah, put it into the break is the best text. Well, yeah, it pretty much is. Said this break, and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's put in there. We don't care if you break or if you're breaking or not. We're just getting you gone.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. Well, that's cool. Yeah. I think the only, if I were to pivot, and the only cards that I particularly have been playtesting with was the new 2-drop backup Avalanche Operative Elfie.
Oh, I haven't got a chance
Um,
to test with her, but she looks really good.
I mean, Avalanche has always been like on the precipice of being like in the meta. I would say like Mashari kind of gate kept them for a while, and now that a lot of locals are starting to already implement the ban with her, I'm starting to see a like a resurgence in Avalanche operatives. Um, but yeah, that's one of the cards that I've been playtesting with. I mean, before I was running Meath, the 2-drop Meath that made it so that you could tutor a forward based on what you discarded. But this Elfie is really much more catered to the Avalanche package, which I think makes her even more useful because she again turns your ugly cards in hand into beautiful forwards that you can get at any time, which is
Right?
wonderful. And she also breaks herself, which is fantastic because the damage that she does is like inconsequential. I mean, it might matter sometimes, but the fact that she can open up a slot in your backup line so that you can play another one, or you can play a backup that you actually want, I mean, just adds more viability to the Avalanche package in a whole. So
Right?
I was pretty high on this card.
She also has EX, which is really good too.
Yeah, that's pretty chef's kiss for sure. Because Avalanche before, they didn't really have the largest amount of EXs that you could viably see, but definitely now I can definitely see the deck having a little more support from the break zone. So
Oh yeah, and I'm gonna be throwing her in my title deck for 7, which uses the engine of Avalanche with a bunch of other stuff. Oh my god. Oh.
yeah, I think the only other card that well, the only other cards that I've been playtesting with is the 1 CP Luso. He's the Clan Gully member. He's a 3000 power body, and when Luso enters the field, if you cast 3 or more cards this turn, you draw a card. And then when Luso enters the field, if you have cast 7 or more cards this turn, deal 8k damage to all the forwards your opponent controls. I know it's
Yes.
a little spicy for that last bit of text, but I mean, 1-drop draw card after cast 3. I mean, I usually in Storm can easily get to cast 3, so I mean, it's not entirely impossible, but I don't know, it has been a card that I've been playing on the side in some of my Storm lists in my playtesting. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, James has a bit of a point because 7's highly supported, but he was going. Avalanche does not need more support. The Barrett was
Uh,
enough.
I don't
Yeah.
know. Popular decks get popular cards. It's
I
kind of
mean,
the
it's
one.
it's basically the poster child of the series, to be honest.
Yeah, we wouldn't be getting starter decks from it if it wasn't the poster child. So,
Yep.
uh, yeah. So, as much as it probably, pains people to see more Avalanche support, I mean, gotta love that the deck is getting a little more consistent. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, outside of Luso, I think the only other card that I was hyped on, I mean, there was a period where I was looking at Golsetsu, which is the new samurai forward. I'll just read what Golsetsu does.
Okay.
He's a samurai forward. So the job samurai forwards and card named samurai forwards other than Golsetsu get 1000 power and brave. And when Golsetsu is put from the field into the break zone, choose one job samurai or card samurai other than your card Golsetsu in the break zone, add it to your hand. It's a 7k body. I kind of play tested with it. Wasn't too happy with it. I think I prefer the backup just personally. That tutors you a Hien because we do have a new Hien. I think we talked about it in the last podcast, but
Yeah.
I was a little more hyped on the backup Hien. But the actual card that I've been playtesting with is the 2 CP Edward backup. It's a bard that just simply says tap Edward and choose one card in your opponent's break zone and remove it from the game. I've just been practicing. I have an Earth Ice build, kind of very similar to some of the Arcanist builds that have been going around. And this Edward was just kind of a shoe-in, because it really wants to tax your opponent, make sure that, you know, their Kusiths or their recursion doesn't happen the way that they entirely think about it. And, you know, anytime you can just have a card sitting up on the field and your opponent has to start doing mental gymnastics to figure out, okay, I need this, you know, I want to play my, I don't know, my Madame Adele, and I need to get back my Soiree member, but oh, they have this one backup that just simply says the target that I choose gets removed on the stack. I mean, it's just painful after a while. So that's the one card that I've been practicing with, getting some worth, and I have gotten quite a bit of mileage out of it. So.
Yeah, it's definitely a really good card. It's almost similar to the older card, the 5 cost 9k rare, I think it is, the Inu.
Yeah, I never really got to play a lot with Emu, just because, I mean, at 5 cost, he's like pretty hard to like just slot into any deck. I mean, Edward is just like a backup, and if you want to be funny about it, you could run the OG Harley that reduces the cost of cards named Edward. Make him a 1 cost backup. I mean, am I saying you should do that? No, but you know, people can live whatever dreams they want. But yeah, definitely a card that I've been playtesting with. So yeah, I don't know. Is there any other spoilers that you particularly have been high on?
Not exactly. I mean, we talked about the Hien, but I've come up with like a. I've pre-built a deck. I just need to add a couple cards and get one more card in there that's already been released, like with previous sets. It's a janky, like, use 5 cost to this. Whoops! Why is that playing in the background? What the? That's weird. What was that? Basically, use Estinian the 5 cost to basically attack 5 times in one combat step.
You gotta love the multi-attack forwards, especially
right?
if you can have it work with Hien multiple times.
Yeah. It's basically a lightning and wind deck.
Lightning and wind?
Yep.
Interesting.
Well, obviously to add fire in there just to mix it, right? So.
Oh, okay. Because I was gonna say, how are you? I guess wind has like backups that can cheat CP, like Charlotta and stuff like that. But yeah, that's interesting.
Basically,
well, go ahead.
I was going to say basically Estinian mixed with the backup Chelinka that gives them Brave and can attack twice this turn. Plus, with you can activate an active forward, and then you can just go swing 1, swing 2, swing 3, swing 4, and swing with Hien, swing 5 with Estinian. There's going to be like you're attacking 6 times essentially, and 5 of those things either someone blocks and things are going to die, or they're going to take 5 hits.
Yeah, and I think the OG Estinian, well, I shouldn't say OG, he's not that old. The Estinian particularly only cares about having 5 backups to get haste, right?
Yeah, it's not lightning backups, it's just 5 backups.
Spicy.
But Chelinka has to be played for that, but then again, at that point, there's now 5 backups.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's definitely, I mean, hopefully you can pull it off. I mean, if you pull it off, that's more like a moral win than it is.
Right.
I mean, if you get it to work, good for you, for sure.
Yeah, it's a janky build, that's for sure.
Speaking of Dragoons, we recently just got a new Dragoon backup. I believe it was a 2 CP standard unit Dragoon backup.
Oh, yeah, that one.
pay 1 and tap it and put Dragoon into the break zone. Choose 1 standard unit forward in your break zone, add it to your hand, and if it's a lightning forward of cost 3 or less, play it to the field instead. You can only use this ability once per turn. So I mean, we already have a Dragoon that's a 7k forward that's a standard unit that when he comes in, you know, you can reveal 4 more
Is it four more? I thought it was just any number of Dragoons, and then if...
I think to break something, let me just look them up. When Dragoon enters the field, you may reveal any number of Dragoon forwards or card named Dragoon from your hand. When you reveal 1 or more Dragoons, he gains haste. If you reveal 4 or more, choose 1 forward and break it. So yeah, I was on the right path with the 4 or more. But yeah, I mean, he's a standard unit, fits right into the package, already fits into a lot of Dragoon decks. So this Dragoon backup definitely gives more viability to kind of I guess a fan favorite deck of sorts. So yeah, definitely some Dragoon synergies upcoming. Hopefully we'll see some more consistency in the Dragoon
Right.
side of things.
It's as much as there's like Summoner, then there's Type Zero and all that stuff. In terms of archetypes, like I forget what I used to call it. Anyway, in terms of archetypes, Dragoon's one of the more popular ones out there.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, what's not to like? They're, you know, fast, cool, armored up dudes. They got a really edgy name, Dragoon. So, I mean, like, what's not to like?
Plus, also from Final Fantasy IV, Kane and 14 Estinian didn't also help boost that, to be honest.
Sure. But yeah, definitely some interesting cards that were spoiled. I mean, if we were to go down the list, I think the um, I saw some chit chat over the Mont Blanc that was spoiled. It's a 3 CP backup that says when Mont Blanc enters the field, you may pay X, and when you do so, you may search for 1 card named Hurdy of cost X and play it to the field. You can use only Ice CP to pay X. And it finds the new Hurdy that's in the set, that's a 2 CP backup, also a Clan Gully member, which is interesting. Not only is it a Moogle, but it also gets a job, while Mont Blanc just stays as a Moogle. But anyway, it's a 2 CP backup Ice that says tap, put Hurdy into the break zone, choose 1 forward, dull it, and freeze it. Or you can pay Fire and Ice and tap Hurdy, and you can put him into the break zone and play 1 Fire or Ice forward of 5 or less from your hand onto the field. So
That's pretty significant in that regard, I think.
yeah, I saw some people chit-chatting about cards like Celteus coming into the field, some cards like, um, you know, randomly dropping a 5 CP Sephiroth on your opponent, or, you know, even cheating in some of the other forwards that we really like to see, like Alcid or things like that, which is like super spicy, but yeah, definitely an interesting... I actually don't know if I like the Hurdy too much. I like his second effect more than I do his first, but I don't know actually if I like Mont Blanc very much. Just personally, just because he's very niche. Like, you have to pay ICP for this ability. So
And you're already paying Fire to get him out, right? So
yeah, so it's like a 5 CP investment to net yourself like a 2 CP backup that could net you more, but it's like, I don't know, maybe I'm just being like critical, because this is definitely going to go into like a Fire Ice build. It's just the vibe, I don't know, like, if you're thinking about it this way, like, if Hurdy comes out before Mont Blanc technically does nothing. You know,
yeah,
because he searches specifically for a card named Hurdy. So if your hand looks like, let's say you draw your first initial hand and Hurdy is in your hand before Mont Blanc is, like, you have to tell yourself, don't play Hurdy so that you can get the value. I don't know, it seems kind of backwards. Outside of it, it's like just a vanilla 3 CP backup, so I don't know, that's like my only gripe with it. I mean, if it said like find any 2 cost to ice backup, I mean, like, we would be in business, but I mean, just because it says search for one card named Herdy of cost X, that's my only downside to it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
No, I can see that.
but yeah,
Uh,
still pretty good, pretty good. Alrighty. Well,
sorry.
how's your local scene going?
Um, well, I know currently my local scene is going through like a type of not really a soft reboot per se, but a reorganization thing because we figured out that uh my my locals isn't just casual. A good portion of the players are hyper casual, and as much as that is a good thing, but it's primarily more bad than good. It's the
Do you wanna?
opposite. It's the opposite extreme of the hyper competitive, where both can be toxic in their own way.
Oh, do you want to elaborate on that? Because it's like a unique perspective.
Yeah. So hyper competitive is hyper competitive. It's either a big event or cash money events or whichever, or not at all, where you just don't want to bother. Blah blah blah. And when they do play, it's like, okay, am I really here just to be a number and not play, or am I here to actually, have fun and compete? That's hyper. That's what a lot of people see as hyper competitive. Hyper casual is the opposite spectrum, where they just meet up, play some games. There's not really much of an incentive to get the promos, get the extra little goodies, have events, and it makes it harder for the shop to get extra product because if they're not going to be, it's basically it's so casual that the shop just doesn't really feel inclined to keep getting stuff and try to work and get the extra goodies for tournaments if they're not really going to be playing and organizing tournaments type deal, right? In some competitive fashion.
Okay. Wow, how unique. Interesting. So, what do you think is the drive of the super casual players then? What do
I
you think alerts them to the store?
I don't, and that's kind of like the problem, right? Because yeah, they're getting stuff, they're buying a product either for nostalgia or play the game and whatnot, but it's it's a weird balancing act. And no matter what, with both hyper competitive and hyper casual, any little bit of push to do one part or the other to help get a happy medium is going to be a huge backlash in some way or another.
Curious.
Like, there's going to be huge pushback and backlash. Is like, ugh. So I know with my locals, some of the portion of the players were not liking the fact that I was having to put up deck lists for top 2 or 3 on the FF decks and whatnot. Whatever the case. So
Okay.
I'm coming up with a compromise with the one group and whatnot. Going, look, here's the change of thing. It won't be top 2 or 3 decks. It'll be whoever gets top place. Is basically when they get top place, they are agreeing that their deck only is going to be reported on FF decks. Because they're in the whole mindset like, well, what if someone copies me? Oh, if my deck list is going to be up on FF decks, and people are just going to copy, blah blah blah. But I'm like thinking, that's what happens though.
I mean, like, I can see some people might be a little reserved with having their lists, especially like if it's kind of like their babies of sort, like put online. But ultimately, like, imitation is the highest form of flattery.
Yeah,
You know,
there's all.
if that wasn't the case, people wouldn't be building like, Matt Okamoto's lists or, Sam Prime's lists or, I mean, I think I've even uh, Travis, he has a YouTube channel. I'm sure a lot of other listeners.
Yeah,
Probably
shout out to
know
Travis,
of
by the way.
Yes, shout out to Travis. We've never like met personally, but I mean, I've seen some of his deck lists, and I always thought, yeah, this is fun. This is cool. So, I built them. I'm sure he doesn't think like, oh no, I'm stealing his,
Right.
his hard work. If anything, I mean, I found what he did interesting enough to build it myself. So, I mean,
Yeah, I've had
again,
people net deck me as well, so I'm like, oh, okay. I just happen to be on the lucky end of it where people ask me ahead of time, "Hey, can I net deck you?" So
Sure, sure. Yeah, and I'm sure Travis probably pilots his decks, 1,000 times better than I could. So, I mean, if I'm copying his list or I change it a little bit, I mean, what does it matter? At the end of the day, you should be having fun.
yeah,
That's
and
primarily the
yeah,
main goal.
and yeah, James is correct. That's why FFX is there to report tournaments and everything else. Which actually technically goes on to my next point about it is if it weren't for FFX having the reports of what decks are being used, yada yada, what cards are there, how oppressive some decks can be in builds versus others, then there wouldn't be much of a report going back to Square Enix in some way, showing the popularity of cards, showing that there's numbers and all that stuff to say, okay, we need a ban said card XYZ or limit card ABC.
Yeah, I mean, like if we want to look at it from like a more like a statistical standpoint, being able to primarily gain a consensus of what your play group or the groups that are around you, like what types of stuff they're playing, is not
Mm-hmm.
only useful for like you said, SE, but it's also useful for the player base. Because if I know that, I don't know, let's say my favorite archetype is, I don't know, Sky Pirates, let's say, and I don't know, the locals that I'm at runs a deck that primarily does really well against Sky Pirates, then I might want to start pivoting my build decisions so
Mm-hmm.
that I can competitively interact with my opponent. I mean, a deck can't stay the same forever. Like
And that's
it's
usually
always
when
going to update.
yeah, that's communities and like local communities can get stale if they don't want to seize it and they just keep playing against that same deck and yeah, the whole can caboodle, right? So
Yeah,
it
yeah. I mean, like it's also healthy to like be able to constantly like revamp your deck because it means that you as the player also get to grow. You don't always have to see the same combo lines. I mean, mm, uh, before decks like I don't know, Mono Water Mashari came out, there were
mhm.
like other summon lists that used, I don't know, other particular cards outside of Volca in order to get value, and then it wasn't until people started seeing this Mono Water list that ran with Volca and Mashari that it grew in popularity, and then that's how a bunch of Moshri decks came about. And
Yeah,
I'm sure people can argue that like that it just like made things more degenerate that more people could see that Moshri existed. But I would also argue that like that's a whole different deck archetype. Like summons weren't really competitive before, and
and if they
suddenly they were.
and if they weren't and if they were competitive, it wasn't on the high tier as it was. It was maybe at
Yeah,
most high tier two, and that's at most.
yeah. So I mean, like things. I know people are afraid of change, but like sometimes
Mhm.
it's like healthy to
Yeah,
essentially have
and plus also some players I have seen some of them like this. They get into a rut where they
sure.
just don't change whatsoever. They want keep things, and it's like, oh my, okay. So,
Yeah, no, it's definitely good to like constantly. If you're not changing up your decks like often, then you're missing a huge part of what makes Final Fantasy as fun as this. Like,
right,
I mean, like one of my favorite opuses was the Rampierre opus, where we had like funny combos like cheating in 9-cost Shantotos by just breaking a 2 CP backup. I mean, that was like one of my favorite opuses. But if I constantly stayed with that deck, I would have never played Sky Pirates or Avalanche or Final Fantasy X or Mashari or Soiree members. I mean, like, gotta constantly switch it up.
right. And I've also heard the argument. Well, it's not really. Yeah, it's a bit of an argument, but I was going to say something. I lost my train of thought there.
It's okay.
Crap. Yeah, it's just I'm dealing with that bit of a problem, and I have to try to come up with a solution that is a happy medium. And
Well, I
it's
mean,
like
the
it's harder than it looks.
well, if they don't want to put their decks on FF decks, or they don't want them like listed, I mean, the next thing you could possibly do is, you could uh like put up, I don't know, like I would say like you could ask them whether or not they want to put like their handle online, and if people have questions about like the deck that they were playing, they could ask them personally. But I mean, that's a whole nother level of like interaction. So maybe that's not the best one, but
Hmm.
I mean, definitely any chance to like chit chat with your community over decks that they might have fears of posting online. I mean, trust me, if their one deck, like the one deck that they were playing, is like so guarded, then I mean, people are gonna like. I think you and I have played like quite a numerous amount of games, and
Yep.
at this point, I could probably see the card list in my mind just from like playing it maybe 2 or 3 times. So like,
Yeah.
I it's harder to guard a deck than it is actually just put it out there, I guess.
Right. And I know in the beginning in 2018, well, really manifest in 2019, but I started memorizing certain deck archetypes and lists in my head.
Sure.
At least
Yep.
not 100% of the cards, but the core of them. So I could tell as soon as someone puts down one card on turn one, I'm like, oh, I know what they're playing. Okay, got it.
Sure.
I like. Then they got annoyed at it, but I was like, oh, I play against this deck way too often. What do you expect?
Like, I mean, maybe it's like a difference of perspective, but at a certain level, you just like you know what your opponent's going to be playing. So,
Right.
I mean, especially if they haven't changed their deck in a while. I mean, I could probably list Mashiri summons from the top of my head without even looking at the deck list. So,
Hmm.
I mean, like, and that's just because I've played against it a bunch. So, does that mean that like, I don't know, I'm gonna outright steal a match from someone? I don't know, but it's definitely it's easier to accept that like people find your deck flattering, and they want to know or replicate what they're seeing. So just allow them to do so.
Right.
It's healthy for
It's
everyone, I think.
now there. My only argument is that there are those players that can't build a deck to save their life, and when they, and when they net deck to get pompous about it, it's like, oh, blah blah blah, I won. It's like they basically they get pompous for the wrong reason, and it's like, okay, buddy, you don't have to actually start like gloating about this and whatnot, and
Sure.
it's that's like that's I've dealt with players like that too, so it's
Interesting. Yeah, I never really looked at net decking as like a negative before. Again, I guess that's more perspective based. I mean, I
and
just
maybe
look at
experience
it.
based as well at the same time, right? So
Yeah, maybe. I definitely just, if someone wants to copy what I'm doing, I'm grand.
yeah, no, I think the same thing, but it's just like I've also seen the negative and the positive of both, so I'm like,
Yeah, I would argue that anything that I'm piloting is probably not worth your time. But I mean, if you want it, it's there. So yeah,
Other than that,
interesting.
so that's what I'm kind of going through. But other than that, the my community is fine. I just have to figure out that the OSS is still rather good. It's we have between 10 minimum to like 25, 30 maximum.
Mm,
That time that's throughout Quebec players and Ontario players coming together, and because literally in terms of location, no matter what people seem to think, otherwise, Kingston is smack dab in the middle. From people from Quebec coming down to play, it's or Gatineau, whichever or, is like 3 hours. People from Toronto coming down to play is 3 hours.
yeah,
Drive.
I just recently came back from vacation in Quebec, and I mean, if when I was looking at like shops in the proximity, I mean, like if I had more time and I wasn't with like, my family members who, they're not card players,
Yeah.
so to like convince them to, make a trip down might be difficult. But um, if I had more time, then yeah, I mean, like, I would probably make the trip. It just never seemed like not doable, in my opinion. But
Yeah.
um,
I guess for the listeners, if they're ever in Quebec, there's two shops I will actually, I forget the other one's name. There is a third shop, but one of the shops I will recommend is FDB Boutique. It's an upstairs, like there's two levels. Downstairs it's like a little cafe, and upstairs is their shop. It's not bad actually. They have a good amount of singles and whatnot, and they actually do monthly tournaments as well. So it's really good atmosphere as well. So,
that's cool.
and then the other one, I don't know if they're still doing stuff, but I think they still do is Geekitude, which is
Interesting.
which is literally you can look across from the shop and see the water at that point.
Oh wow.
Yeah, you get that. What is it, like the Montreal River or something like that,
Hmm.
or the Ottawa
Okay.
River? Sorry, but yeah, I forgot the other one in Quebec. Um, so other than that, what's your locals that you know of that has been going on? Anything, any updates or?
So primarily for us, there's a couple of tournaments that are coming up pretty soon. I mean, like we have our re-raises that a lot of people are kind of practicing for, but I think most people are just looking out and practicing with a lot of the new cards in the set. Um, I mean, it at some point, I would say like maybe within the next 2 weeks, we'll probably know everything that's like to be released in the new set. So
Yeah.
um, a lot of people are just kind of, hedging their time and just practicing what they know, um, so that once the set gets released, they can quickly build decks, buy cards, things like that. Um, but yeah, that's primarily I think what most people are doing. Today at 2 o'clock in Paoli is a Final Fantasy meet, and in New Jersey at 2 o'clock, strangely enough, there's another Final Fantasy meet. So it kind of puts people in like a place where you gotta choose. But nevertheless, they're meeting to do their Final Fantasy locals. So if you're in Jersey, go to Greg's Games at 2 o'clock. And if you're in Paoli, which is in Pennsylvania, go to Mainline Comic and Games. They'll be there. So be there or be square. But
um,
yeah,
I guess from there, speaking of the communities, I know I said stuff that I'm currently trying to work on to improve. Anything that you would say can be improved or could be improved, like to be a little smoother, a little bit better, maybe
oh,
different time that could be better.
oh no, I'm like a morning bird, so like the mornings are best for me because everyone's nice and asleep and nobody's like. My significant other is an editor and she works from home, so
Mm.
uh, sometimes she's in the zone, and if I'm too loud, um, she'll come down from our office and you know she'll tell me I'm a bad boy. So that being the case, definitely mornings work for me. I, if I were to say things that we could improve on, I mean, maybe we could have some more segments, like, brew sections, or maybe we can ask people via, the Facebook or OSS to, um, if they want help with their decks, or maybe our opinions on what, stuff might be able to go in their decks. We could definitely do stuff like that. I'm not like, don't get me wrong, my opinion is just my opinion. So, I mean, if you don't agree with my opinion, completely understandable.
Yeah.
90% of the times, I don't even agree with my opinion. So, that being the case, yeah, if people want to, maybe do like a deck building thing where they have questions, or maybe they want to see decks that people are playing online, we could definitely do like a Final Fantasy. We go on FF decks and just look at a deck and pick it apart and see how it works, and what we might change or what we would keep, or anything of that nature would definitely be cool.
Yep.
Um,
I mean
and
those are. I actually agree with some of those, but then again, also as you said their opinions, and if people want to take them or leave them, that's up to them. So,
And plus, if people are, in that space where they're like, "Hey, you know what, I don't know what to build," seeing some builds might, spark some joy or some curiosity in what they, may or may not want to be playing. So,
yeah.
yeah, that would be definitely a cool thing for me. I definitely like thinking about, the meta and what, people are and are not playing. So yeah, that'd be cool. If I were to think of anything else, maybe we could do like I guess, like history of Final Fantasy, like cards or maybe lore. I personally, I'm not sure, for those of you who may not have listened to some of the other podcasts, I've actually never played like any. I've played maybe one of the Final Fantasy titles to completion. Uh, when it comes to like card names, like you could tell me, I don't know, Arcanist, and I have no idea who he is in lore. I have no idea what he does. Um, I mean, outside of popular media, I don't really know who Yuna is. I don't know who Volca is. I mean, I don't know who Titus really is. So, yeah, hearing some of the history behind that would definitely be cool. Kind of having like I guess like I don't want to call it a history lesson, but like a lesson of sorts in Final Fantasy lore would definitely be cool.
Well,
So yeah,
I would say we can do that. There's already someone that does it in abundance. But I guess we can do that in the sense of how the cards interact comparatively to their lore, essentially.
yeah, sounds great. Because like I have no idea why Death is exiling all this stuff from the graveyard. Why is he so angry? Like I don't know that. All I know is that like can I Amaterasu it? And it's like sure, that's where my specialty comes in. So
Yeah.
definitely stuff like that would definitely be cool in my opinion. I know when one of our mutual friends, Haru S, who plays Final Fantasy with us online, when he goes like into a deep dive about, I think we were chit chatting about the Final Fantasy movie, Spirits Within, I think it was called.
Yeah.
When he was talking with you about like how that movie may or may not have destroyed Final Fantasy, like as a franchise. Definitely was interesting to hear that opinion and also hear about why. So, yeah, stuff like that I find cool.
Yeah. Now, there's probably going to be some people that listen either way later on. I'll go, Spirits Within really bad for Final Fantasy. And I talked about before, but basically, if you just took just had Spirits Within, didn't slap the Final Fantasy logo on it, it'll be good as a standalone movie. So,
Yeah, I find it interesting to hear about those perspectives because like I genuinely have no context to pull from. Like when you guys tell me, "Oh yeah, this happened," I was like, "How unique? Like why? Like why did it happen in this kind of fashion?"
the
But yeah,
the good
I
thing
definitely
is,
find that cool.
yeah, the good thing is about so there's we're coming into a silver age now of Final Fantasy video games, or just Final Fantasy in general. So
Yeah.
the golden age was around like maybe 1989 to starting at, or just starting at, to the early 2000s, like 2001 at most, of the golden age of Final Fantasy. And then there was a bit of a gap. Obviously, it wasn't really doing too well, but was doing whatever. And then now we're going into the silver age, essentially what people think. That is the age for Final Fantasy. And
Interesting.
where it's like there's almost a release almost every year of one. So we're going on to 14, Shadowbringer or Endwalker, 7 remake, uh, Crisis Core remake. Um, Not only that, there's the new release of all the Final Fantasy VII for the 25th anniversary, essentially, into one free mobile game. That's all of them combined. Reunion, or Rebirth, sorry, of Part 2 of remake and so on and so forth. So and then 16 around the corner. As I go, oh boy, there's a lot of titles to be released within this basically age of the Silver Age of Final Fantasy here.
Yeah, it sounds like it. But yeah,
Um,
I definitely think a podcast, or maybe like, an afternoon or just chit-chatting about the stuff like that would definitely be useful, uh, and pretty enjoyable in my opinion. But yeah,
I think the
that
only other thing that I can say is that from so I don't know which shop it was, but they leaked what will be in the Resurgence of Power box, other than the Yuffie that's signed by Tetsuro Nomura.
okay.
Um,
Hmm.
yeah, there's going to be There's going to be three legacy cards, but in alternate arts that are in Yoshitaka mono art.
Spicy.
There's the 4-drop Sephiroth, you know the 4-drop 10k one?
Yes.
That'll be a full.
The dark one, I think.
Yeah, that'll be full art foil Tetsuro Nomura Sephiroth.
Spicy.
The other, I forget which one, but it's, you know, the Aerith that was basically the star deck that was also the reunion promo?
The light one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that will be a full art foil Tetsuro Nomura Aerith.
Oh, cool.
And I think Cloud's going to be in there. I just forget which Cloud it is. I think it's Star Deck Cloud. I think.
Okay.
But I could be wrong. But I know Cloud's going to be in there as a Tetsuro Nomura full art foil. As
Yeah.
far as I know, at least.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely talking about any of that stuff, for sure interesting. Great topics in my opinion.
Because, well, it also means Resurgence of Power is going to be hugely like hyped and hugely want to be collected and try to get those mono art cards and possibly get that Yuffie card. And we don't know if it's going to be one per case, one per master case, and if it is one per master case, that cost for the Yuffie is going to skyrocket, and it's like, oh boy.
Yeah, I mean, some people, definitely on the collector space, I could see that being like totally worthwhile. On a casual space, I don't really know how much it will affect the average player, but definitely cool that it's happening. Um, I mean, I definitely hope that you know, anytime Final Fantasy can get some good PR, in my opinion, is a grand time. But
Yeah.
yeah, hopefully the positive um, feedback from the special cards that are in that set will particularly drive some desire in the product. I mean, again, like you were saying, hopefully that doesn't come with the caveat of scarcity, but um, we'll have to just wait and see.
Yeah. I think that's about it. We've kind of this has been it's like about an hour and 7 minutes so far.
Yeah, well, we can definitely save some more chit-chatting
Oh my God, excuse
for
me.
our next podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anything that you want to say on the outs?
Um, not really too much. Oh, right. I just remembered. Um,
Yep.
so the OSS will be doing a side event at the Re-Rise in Ottawa.
Oh,
And
cool.
obviously within the rules, me and the shop owner both asked Square Enix NA going, okay, what's allowed? What can we do? And as for those that have seen the post or otherwise for OSS, we have, well, as well as you can see on the screen here, art like this that we use for prizing, playmats, or otherwise. So I also asked Square Enix, going, okay, and stuff like this, which I use art like that for as an example, going, is this considered possible infringement that you know of on the original IP? Blah blah blah. Make sure I'm not. Make sure me and the shop owner for Re-Rise aren't going to get in crap and get a cease and desist.
Gotcha.
So they're like, basically they gave the answer of, we don't know, but best not to use it just in case. So what me and local artists in Kingston, and hopefully for those that know the name, Brian Blanchard, which was Canada's actual level 1 judge, because grandfathered in. And he's been, no, if those that remember his name out there and all that, I want to see if he can do some art as well, because I know he's been wanting to do something for an event like that for quite some time. So, it has to be completely original though. Everything has to be original art. Has to not even be seen as somehow related to Final Fantasy in theme or otherwise. Just so that way it's not you. That way there's no whatever. So.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But
Definitely don't want to get sued.
right, or at the very least cease and desist, but that's still bad in and of itself.
Yeah, I mean, best not make Papa Square Enix mad.
Right. That's why I was like, oh, okay, I need to make sure I'm not stepping on toes for said event.
Yeah.
Other than that, me and some of the organizers are thinking about like some other stuff. Oh god, I have to get goodie bags. But it's going to be a day 2 event that's available only to those that take part in the regional, and for those that don't make top 16, they can take part in it for like $20 with extra little goodies and all that stuff that come with it. The shop owner also is providing food for both days for those that are taking part.
That's pretty nice.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's going to be I've known him like a while ago of when he used to own another shop, but anyway, that's a history lesson for another time. He's a really, really nice guy. I would say that if you're ever able to, like, he has so many different projects on the go, and he's actually been featured on Canada's literally national broadcast, CBC News, essentially, for a really good job over in Ottawa.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so if you're coming to the Re-Rise Regional October and you don't happen to get top 16, there is another event where you can still get some neat, cool swag, all the other jazz and whatnot included. So you're not fully left out.
Yeah. And that information is going to be on your Facebook page, I'm assuming?
Yep, and the shop owner, his website, Red Dragon, also has a little bit of that info on his website as well.
Nice. That way, if any of the listeners are interested in such an event, they can have an idea of where to go look.
Yep, and I'll be posting different arts in the next coming weeks or so of the new characters being presented, different arts for community events. Oh yeah, the whole bit. So that's my little bit of info for, I guess, the send off before the stream ends.
No, that sounds good. Sounds good. I'm sure people will be looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Not to losing, that is. I mean, it's. I'm sorry if you didn't make top 16, but you know, there is a light in the horizon, and it's a day 2 event at the Red Dragon, according to Dare.
So yeah. Other than that, thanks for coming out to talk there, Quinn.
Yeah, of course.
And I think that's yeah. So thanks for those that came in to chat with us, etc. We'll be hopefully we can be back for like an afternoon on Wednesdays. But usually we're here every Sunday around 8 or 9 a.m. Just kind of like a breakfast chatter and all that other stuff. So thanks for
breakfast is the most important meal, so you got to show up for the breakfast podcast.
True enough. So thanks for coming out, and we'll end it here and catch you all later.
Bye.
Bye bye.